The readings for this Sunday echo deeply in our current global reality. They are about illness and isolation, faith and the common good, healing and restoration. So many of these elements resonate with us, with our collective experience during this once in a century pandemic. Some are facing illness unlike anything known in recent memory. Most are isolating as necessary to keep our community safe and to promote the common good by taking precautions to protect our most vulnerable neighbors. The physical healing will continue as God's gift of human intellect and innovation offers us ways to prevent the spread of disease via the study of epidemiology, immunology, and virology, along with the development of vaccines. However, we will have to navigate unknown paths of social reintegration and community rebuilding, for which there is no prescribed route, but yields an impetus for faithful reliance upon God's grace. From a modern perspective, the reading from Leviticus, with its demands that those with leprosy isolate themselves from the wider community, seems cruel. Yet, without modern medicine and science, communities had to find the best ways to safeguard their members and to protect the common good. It should also be noted that the Hebrew scriptures provide a way to reintegrate those who are healed back into society and communal relationships. As in today's gospel reading, Jesus heals the leper, then instructs him to present himself to the priest in accordance with the law of Moses. Jesus broke a taboo by touching the leper, yet he also worked within the bounds of halakha, or rabbinical law, for the leper's restoration into communal life. In the lectionary, much of the technicality is cut from the Leviticus passage, detailing the assessment criteria for various skin discolorations and scab formations and all manner of dermatological conditions that fall within the biblical category of leprosy. The priests, as leaders within their community, had complex examination and diagnostic tools and prescriptions for treatment, including quarantine, isolation, and other ways of acknowledging those afflicted with the condition. Catholic priests today can live into their societal leadership by encouraging and being exemplars of mitigating behaviors that keep our communities safe, as recommended by the Center for Disease Control and the World Health Organization. In today's psalm, we hear the reliant reaching out to God in times of trouble. And a medical affliction of pandemic proportions is one such time that calls for a song about God's salvation and comfort in the midst of trouble. The psalm recenters us on God's mercy, grace, and the core of our faith, Christ's salvific action. The epistle reading in 1 Corinthians affirms our individual responsibility as essential to work for and to participate in the common good for the benefit of all our neighbors, which includes not offering offense to those outside of the traditional bounds of our particular community. The centralization of the common good lays the groundwork for the restoration and healing of the leper in the gospel. The healing is not solely an act of removing physical maladies, but a social one that allows the leper to be ritually reintegrated, restoring a sense of wholeness to the community. Such a restoration, as St. Paul writes, is for the glory of God. In our current times, 11 months into a period of darkness, a period of self isolating, of quarantining, of wearing masks and more diligently washing our hands, of protecting our vulnerable neighbors by social distancing, this time of darkness where we have already seen the loss of almost 500,000 Americans, our readings today remind us that this is also a time of hope. We see hope shining through with the monumental task of coordinating vaccines for hundreds of millions of American adults, in healthcare workers who are overextended, exhausted, and continue to work for the well-being of their communities, in the farmers who continue to grow food so we can nourish our bodies, and in the resistance to chaos and violence that often accompanies societal uncertainty. As Catholics, we are called to have the same certainty of the leper in today's gospel. We are called to have the same faith in Jesus Christ. With such certainty and faith in Christ, we know that we can work with others through this pandemic and that one day we will be able to welcome one another back from Zoom and into our in-person communities. But for that to happen, we should ask ourselves, as we use the best medical and scientific tools we have at our disposal, how will we collectively be conscious of our communal trauma that our country and our world has experienced? How will we learn to negotiate new boundaries for the good of all? How will we grow in our comfort of sharing meals and table fellowship again? How will we attend cultural events? And most importantly, how will we work to rebuild vibrant parish life centered on the mercy and love of God?